Hello and welcome to the Pages Pixels podcast, where we talk about new movies every week. I'm Rohan.
I'm Kirtana.
And today we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine.
On video for the first time.
Yep.
Are you excited?
Yeah. Why don't we get started with the logline? What is Deadpool Wolverine about?
We know that the IMDb logline says that Deadpool is offered a place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by the Time Variance Authority, but instead he recruits a variant of Wolverine to save his universe from extinction.
Yeah. As a reminder, we're doing full spoilers, like always.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sums it up. He's joining the MCU Earth, which is Earth 616, I think. So he's going to go there because the TVA recruits him, but he also finds out that his timeline is getting destroyed because the anchor being, so you call it, it has passed away. So the timeline is going to slowly erase, but the TVA, which is the guy Tom from Succession, they call him Mr. Paradox in this, but I'm gonna keep calling him Tom. Decides, well, why wait these thousands of years? I'm just gonna destroy it completely. Mm-hmm. So he's like, hey, I'm gonna just find a different Wolverine to become the anchor being, so that way my universe doesn't get destroyed and my friends and family are still
safe and alive.
Yeah.
I feel like the logline sums up the story pretty well. In fact, I think it makes it look a little more complicated than the story ended up being.
It also kind of sums up the state of just Marvel and the Fox universe in general. Mm-hmm. Like, because, hey, Logan died in Logan, and nobody cares about the Fox universe anymore, so just kill it. Just move on to MCU. The only person who's going to move on to the MCU is Deadpool.
Okay. The Deadpool franchise I've really enjoyed through the years. I liked Deadpool 2 over Deadpool 1. Mm-hmm. Mostly because that entire sequence of where Deadpool gets his powers, that didn't sit well with me. It was not easy to digest, let me say. I also liked Deadpool 3 quite a lot, actually.
Okay.
How about you?
I really, really like Deadpool 1. Deadpool 2 was pretty good, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Logan is a movie that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
It really, I think, separates itself from other movies in the superhero genre. It was a perfect ending to the character of Logan. And then in general with the X-Men, I've been a big fan of the franchise. I wish it ended on a better note. I think the last one was Dark Phoenix, which was
the Sophie Turner one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was probably, in my opinion, the weakest of that whole group. But I think that there was so much good in that franchise. You know, the first two, and then First Class, Days of Future Past, and it's just the X-Men have always been thematically rich because it's all about civil rights, and specifically with these movies, they're more about gay rights, and and I think that kind of separates them from other superhero movies as well.
I agree. I will admit I've been in and out of the franchise. I got introduced to it very early on, maybe earlier than I should have been, because when I first watched it, I didn't pick up on the more intricate aspects of the franchise. But of course, as time passed, I did really start to enjoy it. Logan broke my heart.
Yeah.
I actually didn't watch it for the longest time because the way that the world was reacting to it, I was like, I probably won't be able to handle this. I've been a big fan of the franchise in general, and I think Deadpool was a good addition to that universe. It is I will say I'm a little sad that Marvel took it over.
Because I really think that, I will say that I kind of want to compare it to like floor and ceiling, because I think Marvel, and when I talk Marvel, I mean the MCU, it probably has a higher floor than Fox, because Fox, they put out some stinkers, because we're just talking about X-Men.
Right.
But there was X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was awful. Dark Phoenix, which was also pretty bad. But then we haven't even mentioned the Fantastic Four movies.
We didn't, but they did a lot in this movie.
But then but then I think they also have a much higher ceiling when it works. And at least in my opinion, I think Logan, Days of Future Past, and First Class are more interesting, in my opinion, than anything that the MCU has done.
Right. I think it comes down to the size of the production company or the studio itself, because stakes are so directly related to that. I guess Fox does have the liberty to be more experimental because the universe itself is smaller.
Well, yeah, there's that, but they also... Fox just doesn't care about the continuity between every movie.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder if that's the right way to do it, because I feel like once you instill the idea of time travel in any expansive universe, it becomes impossible to control the offshoots from that little thing. And I feel like the MCU is struggling with that right now.
Yeah, but I actually really like the way the X-Men did it in Days of Future Past, where it's not time travel per se, it's just sending Wolverine's memories back into his past.
So what are some of the things that you guys liked about this movie?
On the whole, I thought it was a really fun movie to watch. The jokes worked for me. As shallow as some of them were, I enjoyed all of them. I also think Ryan Reynolds is extremely charming, which I genuinely enjoyed. I also really like the fight sequences. I'm not a fan of general blood and gore, but with Deadpool, I kind of don't care because I know it's meant to be a joke anyway.
I will say, just to address some of the stuff that you pointed out, I think that the humor, it was still funny, but I did find a lot of the humor, even though I was understanding the joke, it didn't make me laugh as much as the first two did.
Right.
Fight scenes were cool, but I also don't think that it did anything to stand out. I think Deadpool 2 had better fight scenes. I believe the director of that was David Leitch,
right,
who had directed John Wick, or one of the co-directed John Wick, the first one, Atomic Blonde, and a few other.
Definitely in the same genre, for sure.
Yeah. And I think when he is directing, you can always trust great fight scenes and great lighting. You're gonna get that. What I really loved in this movie was Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Don't get me wrong, I think he's great, but I have kind of grown tired, not of him as Deadpool, but of him being Deadpool in every single movie that he's been in.
Right.
Since the first Deadpool, it was a huge hit, and no matter what movie he does, he kind of has that same thing. So I'm getting just a little tired of his shtick, even though he is doing exactly what you should be as Deadpool. Right. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, it really does feel like he is stepping into this role, and he is putting on a performance, and a great one in my opinion. He didn't let's be real. He came back because they probably gave him
a shit ton of money.
Yes. But he didn't treat it that way. He didn't just phone it in. He actually tried and brought some great emotion to scenes where there really wasn't any in the writing.
Right.
But it works because he's so good in it.
So we sort of touched on it, but what are some of the other things that didn't work in this film?
I think it was the story for me. It was very, very flat. Don't get me wrong, I loved the cameos. I loved the fight sequences. I loved all the things that were there for us to love. But I feel like the story felt super phoned in and very flat.
Yeah.
It was... especially I think at the end of the second act, about 30 minutes into the film, at the end of the first act, about 30 minutes into the film, when they went to that, what was it, a pocket out of time or something?
Yeah, that wasteland thing.
Yeah. The minute they went there, I was my heart broke because I was oh shit, the rest of the film is gonna be here.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it was a little predictable for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of see how if you're a part of the MCU and there's so many timelines and events and things to worry about, the obvious solve seems let's take them out of anything that has consequence. But that didn't work.
But they didn't necessarily have to do that either because his universe was already getting destroyed. So they could have stayed in that universe. It's all cameos. It didn't feel like they had a story and they added the cameos. It feels like they had the cameos and they're okay, we need to use these cameos, and they built a story around how can we get these cameos to appear. And Listen, like I think you can do both.
Yeah.
In terms of look at Spider-Verse,
Yeah.
for example. Spider-Verse has a ton of cameos, a ton of Easter eggs, and all that. But then, if you're an audience member watching Spider-Verse and you don't understand any of the cameos, you don't understand any of the Easter eggs, you can probably still enjoy the movie because it's still a good movie as a whole.
Yeah, I feel like the story does need to come from character motivations. In some sense, it can be the protagonist or the antagonist, but I feel like here, both of them kind of
Yeah.
lacked real motivation. Like Deadpool's whole thing is that someone tells him that he doesn't matter, like in the grand scheme of things. When that happens, it becomes a little hard. It kind of comes out of nowhere, first thing.
Yeah.
His breakup comes out of nowhere. So when you don't understand like why he's struggling with this internal question, it
Right.
becomes hard to care about that question.
I also, from a character perspective, this didn't feel like Deadpool in this movie. Because, for example, Deadpool always makes fun of stuff.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he was constantly making fun of the Fox characters, but he was worshipping the MCU characters. He was like, oh my God, I love Captain America. I
Yeah.
love the Avengers.
Yeah.
It should kind of, I feel like actually Deadpool would be making fun of them also. Like,
Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which brings me to my next point because I could definitely feel like they were holding back with the jokes. And again, I see Disney probably cutting 90% of what they wanted to say. But I missed the edgy humor a little bit.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was as well done. And I do think, I don't know if you remember the Once Upon a Deadpool that had come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do think that they were trying to, that was an experiment to see how would PG-13 work, and they decided it didn't work.
Yeah.
So they gave it an R rating, but it did feel a little limiting.
Well, most of the R rating, I think, was for the groin stabs, which there were so many.
I also think from a technical perspective, and we actually kind of disagree with this, I don't think that this movie is super well made. I think it's competently made.
Right.
But I wouldn't go so far as to say well made.
Yeah. So my counter, like you said, like we disagree with this. Like I think it was a very smooth watch for me, and the reason that I don't feel like it should matter as much is because I'm not going into this film expecting visual spectacle.
Shouldn't you?
I don't know. I mean, not from Deadpool.
It's a $200 million Marvel movie.
No, I agree, and I mean. Like, I see your logic of like, oh, if it costs this much money, like, competent is not enough. I think the reason I pushed back is because, again, like, if a film like, I don't know, like Titanic or like Interstellar or something, if that movie didn't look good, and it didn't like wow me, like, I would be upset because it's part of the appeal. For Deadpool, like, I'm not going in for like to be wowed by the visuals. I'm going because I just want to laugh and have a nice time. I think that there's a difference in the expectation.
I guess, but again, I think that is that more of because of you personally, or is it because the studios have kind of trained you to be like that?
For sure, the studios have definitely trained me.
It's because we've seen this as a pattern emerge, these giant studio tempo blockbusters. If it's not being made by, and you brought up Titanic and Interstellar, if it's not being made by people like James Cameron or Christopher Nolan, you're just expected to be like, yeah, it's going to be average.
Yeah.
But why? Why can't it be like truly great?
No, I mean, I absolutely see what you mean.
Yeah.
They don't feel like a person made them. And I think that does come from like being almost groomed by studios to expect one thing. And yeah, when we see movies like, what was it, like Titanic, Avatar, whatever.
Yeah.
All of them, they feel bigger than life, and they feel like money has been spent well because it feels like a person made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. This does feel a little made by committee.
Yeah, no, 100%.
If I were a screenwriter, how would I want to write a script that has has offensive humor in it?
I think that's a great question, especially in the context of this film. Deadpool really kind of like lives and dies in that world of like punching at someone, literally. But also so we know that like very often humor comes at someone's expense, and in that you can punch up or punch down. And obviously it's recommended that you punch up because you laugh at people who are doing better than you.
Yeah.
To feel better about yourself. But yes.
That's kind of like how we bully you like constantly because we're punching up.
You know what? I'll take it. No, but I was trying to, but I think within that, there's like other different types of humor when you're writing it. And there's like, I like to think there's two like classifications. Like one is the Deadpool kind of humor where the character's self-aware. The character's aware of the world. And his humor comes from making fun of people who aren't. Or making fun of the world in the way that it exists. The second kind of humor is the Michael Scott or Sheldon Cooper kind of humor, where both these characters, their humor, the reason they're funny is because we're laughing at them, not with them. And that happens because they have a fundamental misunderstanding about the universe around them.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's way harder to write the Deadpool type of humor. But I also think that it's effective because it is more work to do. But when it comes to, Michael Scott or Sheldon Cooper, the jokes become a little easier to write. I think because you've already established your character traits and you just have to go off of that.
So at the end of the day, like, offensive humor kind of guides part of the audience. But like, what else, like, do you think this film, this is sort of segueing to your point, who is this movie like really for? Is it for people who are superhero fans, or is it for people who want to see like the cameos and the affair of the world and the MCU?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up, which is the intertextuality. It means that it is using something from something else that is not within this film to get an emotional reaction out of you.
Right.
I think, for example, you look at all the Disney remakes, The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, or whatever. A lot of them rely on intertextuality because they're showing you, oh, hey, look at this nostalgic thing that you saw back when you were a kid, and we're bringing it to life, and that's what it is. And I'm actually not opposed to intertextuality. I think you can use it as long as it is a tool in your tool belt and not your entire tool belt.
Right.
Which, in my opinion, that is kind of what this entire movie was. Like, all the cameos and stuff, we're not really getting excited for something that is good in the movie. Rather, we're excited about the kind of behind the scenes legal stuff that's going on. For example, Wesley Snipes as Blade. If there was any other actor playing Blade, maybe with the exception of Mahershala Ali, we'll see if that ever happens. But would you care? Same for Channing Tatum as Gambit.
Yeah. No, I see exactly what you mean. I think it kind of comes down to the intent with which you're writing. You can tell intent easily anywhere. Like, you could be watching a movie and you could tell if a joke being written is written in the right spirit, or if they're actually just saying something offensive and calling it a joke to get away with it. Same thing with fan service.
Yeah.
If they're doing it with actual excitement, like they did perhaps in the earlier Deadpool movies, you can tell that. And you can tell that this time it was done because they knew that the audience was coming in for that.
If Deadpool were to show up in another MCU franchise as a prominent character, like he's like one of the main side characters alongside the main hero.
Yeah.
Which one do you think he would fit in the best story-wise?
Spider-Man?
I was gonna say Spider-Man.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is because there is a lot of comics of them kind of hanging out together. And that's the reason.
I didn't have that context, but I was gonna say Spider-Man. My instinct was say Thor first.
That would be my second choice.
Yeah, but don't you think there would be like a conflict in the way these characters like exist?
Potentially.
Like, just with humor, I'm saying. Like, I think Thor's like, again, Thor comes from the other school of like humor.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, he's funny because he doesn't understand the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe that would make Deadpool look bad.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. I mean, I'm going to stick with Spider-Man.
Okay. Should we have different answers though? I mean, I could see him popping up in a Guardians simply because if it is James Gunn, I think James Gunn is very. I think I would trust James Gunn to use Deadpool well.
Yeah.
While also creating a pretty good movie overall.
Okay, so we're let's move on to standout scenes, and just to make it fun, standout cameos. Your favorite cameo from an actor in this movie.
Okay, I'm gonna go first. I think my favorite cameo was Channing Tatum.
Okay.
I think I'm on board with most of what Channing Tatum does. My favorite scene was the car fight scene between Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because, listen, we saw them fight in every sequence in this film. But I just thought it was a really creative use of a brand endorsement.
Oh, okay.
And it was like a well choreographed fight scene. Like, I liked it, but you know, it was kind of cool till I think at one point they made a joke about leg room in the middle of that fight, and I was like, that's kind of cool. I can be on board with that.
I think I would have liked it more had it not been had they not had fought earlier in the movie. If that was the first fight they had, then I would have enjoyed it. But it's like, yeah, we just saw them fight like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So maybe not 10 minutes, but you know.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
My favorite cameo is Henry Cavill as Wolverine. I think it was really funny that, well, one, he's been a fan cast for a while. And, you know, it makes sense that in one of the worlds it's not Hugh Jackman.
Yep.
And I also loved Deadpool's little dig where he's like, hey, don't worry, come here. We'll treat you better than the guys down the street.
Yep.
And then my favorite scene as a whole is Logan and Laura at the campfire. Because, I mean, I had mentioned already, I think Wolverine was the best part of this movie.
Right.
And I think this scene just exemplifies it. He's talking about his past, and it is so vague. You don't really know what happened.
Yeah.
You know something happened, but you don't know what. And he's describing it, and it's not... The writing is not like all that great.
Yeah.
But his acting is so great that he sells the emotion and you feel it because of that.
No, I mean, that scene was excellent. I will say, now that we're talking about like favorite cameos and things, I have a problem in this film. If they were able to do fan casting for so many other films and then bring in actors to do cameos, why didn't they do that with Daniel Radcliffe? Everyone on the internet and their dads wanted Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine. Like, would it have killed them to just put him in one frame?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I mean, you could have run Shah Rukh Khan also.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Hugh Jackman was asked who should be the next Wolverine, and he said Shah Rukh Khan.
Yeah, exactly. Bring them on board. Like, I don't know. That kind of pissed me off because when I saw Henry Cavill, I was like, oh shit, Daniel Radcliffe is going to be in this, and it would have been the greatest crossover ever in the history of forever. And they decided not to do it.
All right, let's move on to score.
All right. As a reminder, the way we do the scores here is on the script coverage scale of pass, consider, or recommend. Basically, it's pass if you don't think it's a great movie. Consider if you think it's decent. Recommend if you think it's actually good, or if it's actually great. This is not an actual recommendation, though. It's just a score. How would you score Deadpool and Wolverine?
I'm going to give it a pretty strong recommend.
Really?
I mean, I know it had its issues, but when I went in, this was what, an hour and a half long? It was great.
It was 2 hours.
Even better then, because it didn't feel as long.
Okay.
No, I enjoyed it. It was really fun, and I like the franchise, and if they make one more, I'll probably go watch that too.
I'm going to say pass.
Wow.
I think...
Do you hate happiness or fun?
But that's the thing. I didn't have a lot of fun in this movie. I was someone who really liked... I told you, I really liked the first two Deadpools. I really like X-Men. I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I just felt myself tired in this movie because I don't think it was about anything. I think it was Ryan Reynolds just doing his shtick
Right.
again. And I mean, there's a point in the movie where when third act big fight is about to happen. Deadpool kind of goes, he literally turns to the audience and he goes, "Don't worry, we're almost there." And I was like, thank God, this movie is almost over. I think there's so many scenes that really just didn't, you could cut those out and the movie ends up being the same. That big fight scene, which is probably the best fight scene in the movie, where it's Wolverine and Deadpool fighting all the other Deadpools.
Right.
You cut that scene out. It has no impact on the movie. The rest of the Deadpools, they don't. It's not like they show up for the final climax. You would think that maybe, hey, when Peter shows up and they're all like, "Oh, hey, it's Peter," they're going to join, and it's going to be an army of Deadpools versus Cassandra.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just there. There was.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
For context, Cassandra is supposed to be Charles Xavier's sister.
Yep.
And she's always lived in the pocket outside of time because the TVA put her there.
Yep.
And the reason we barely and she's the main antagonist of the film. And the reason we barely spoke about her is because there's not much to speak about.
Yeah.
It's very flat. She wants to take over the world. She's upset she didn't get to meet her brother. That's really it.
Even at the end of the day, her goal, what she's trying to do at the end, is destroy the universe that is already being destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the weird finger brain thing was like, it just, I wish she didn't wiggle her fingers.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
And there's there's also so much more that this movie could have done. I mean, we see her hideout is kind of the inside of a giant Ant-Man. But then we have that one establishing shot and then nothing after that. What about the inside? They could have used it cleverly, and it did. A lot of this movie felt a little lazy.
Let's move on to recommendations.
So I'm going to recommend Buried because I've been shit talking Ryan Reynolds and his shtick for this whole episode. But Ryan Reynolds, I truly believe, is a great actor. He has range, and I think he showed it in Buried, which is the concept of this movie is it's Ryan Reynolds. He wakes up, he's in a coffin, and he has a cell phone on him. He doesn't know how he got to the coffin, but he needs to
get out.
He needs to get out. But he's already buried 6 feet under, and the entire movie takes place in that coffin. There are other characters that exist, but you only hear them over the phone.
Right.
So you are with Ryan Reynolds the entire time, and because it's a thriller, so there's none of his jokiness or whatever. It is him carrying this movie on his own, where he can't even physically move because he's literally laying down in the coffin the entire time. And he was great in it, and the movie is great as well.
It sounds fun. It's not what I would have pictured Ryan Reynolds, which I think is your point.
Yeah.
I'm going to go the opposite direction, and I'm going to recommend Guardians of the Galaxy, specifically Volume 2. Because I think, first of all, it's a fun movie, but I also think that the tone and the genre match pretty well. So if you like Deadpool style of storytelling, check out Guardians of the Galaxy.
All right. Now, what else have you been watching?
I've been watching this amazing show called Veep.
Love that show.
It is hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a little old. It hasn't aged super well, I would say, but
I think it's aged amazingly. I mean, okay, yeah, the stuff they say, it's really messed up, but it was always like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's super fun. It's on HBO Max if anyone wants to check it out.
They have been pushing it a lot recently. I wonder why.
Yeah.
What could have made them push that show? So I've been watching X-Men 97. It's that new. I mean, there is the 1997 X-Men show, but this is X-Men 97, the new one, which is kind of a reboot / continuation of that show. It's great. There is so. I really, really liked love some of the X-Men movies. This show might be better than all of them.
Okay.
that's saying a lot. I think it's so relevant today politically. I think thematically it's super rich. And this is an animated show that is at least marketed towards kids. But I think it's something that adults can enjoy quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've only heard good things about it. Do you know what it's on?
Disney Plus.
Got it.
Yep.
Also, before we close off, all the shit I've been getting for my recommendations, like, why? Just let me live, you guys. Like, I get texts. Like, my friends, like, anytime I talk to them, they'll be like, yeah, I listened to the episode. And they're like, I like Rohan's recommendations better. Then be friends with him. Stop calling me. Yeah, just had to get that out.
What if they do start doing that, though?
That would be funny.
Well, Rohan's number is...
Well, with that, we come to the first video episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Kirtana.
I'm Rohan.
And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week and we'll be talking House of the Dragon.
Yep.
I will be in black, Rohan will possibly be in green. And we'll see you next week.
All right.
All right.
Bye.